Hey everyone! Today on the plastic canvas we're painting the skull first player token from Zombicide by Simon Games. Hey everyone, Matt here from the Plastic Canvas and welcome to today's painting video, and today we are painting the skull first player token from Zombicide. Now this skull is an upgraded first player token that came with our game when we got it. We bought this game second hand off someone else and they had bought a ton of extra stuff with this game. We reckon they bought over $1,000 worth of Zombicide stuff altogether. But Zombicide is one of our favourite games. It gets to the table a lot. And so I decided to paint this token because pretty well the rest of the game is painted. My wife has painted pretty much all of the zombies, a heap of the characters, so most of the stuff on the table is painted, and this gets, passed around during the game. It's always on the table, so I thought it's probably worth painting this just to make it look a little bit better, seeing as it's just grey plastic and most other stuff in the game has been painted. Now, while this skull is quite a basic shape, the overall forms of it are fairly simple, there are two main things that I wanted to focus on while painting this. The first was the way that I could gradually build up the volumes of the shape and give the impression that it's being hit by light from directly above. And that's what I'm doing here with my airbrush. So I decided that I wanted to paint it purple just because that was a pretty cool color that I thought was going to stand out. And so I'm just gradually starting from a really, really deep purple. So I use my dark purple and mix some black in with it just to lay down that initial base coat. And that's what's going to, whatever is left of that is going to be the shadows. And then I went back to just the dark purple with no black mixed in. And then I hit it from, I don't know, maybe like a 10 or 20 degree angle, something like that. Still fairly low, but just slightly elevated so that it would leave the deepest recesses with that super, super dark purple with the black mixed in. Then I started to mix in the amethyst purple, which is my brighter purple, and then I just elevated a little bit more, hit that with the hairdryer, dried it off, mixed in a little bit more of the amethyst purple, elevated a little bit more, and then just every time that I lighten the color off, I just elevated a bit more and a bit more and a bit more, and now you can see I'm starting to mix in some white to get it really, really bright, and this is where I'm almost hitting from directly above. So I suppose you might call this like a zenithal base coat, I guess. So just gradually lightening the tone, and every time I lighten it off, just hitting from a higher angle until pretty well directly above. And so what that's done is the topmost surfaces and the top of all of the edges, so the kind of the around the eye socket where that eyebrow sort of part is, that's catching a lot of the light. The lower part of the eye socket there, like the top of the cheekbones, the top of the chin that's sticking out, all of those parts caught those brightest parts as well, and has helped to give the impression that it's being hit from a light source directly above. And the other thing that I wanted to do was to create some sort of creepy, eerie sort of element to the skull, I suppose. And so I decided that I wanted to do glowing eyes. And so the other thing that I'm using this skull as to practice, I suppose, is doing some OSL, so object source lighting. So if you're not familiar with that, that's basically just painting the glow that's coming from a light source onto the surrounding surfaces. Now, I have really only had one main other time that I've practiced this, and that was with these guys here. These are the men here from Tainted Grail. And you can see that I've painted the glow coming off all of those different candles onto the surfaces around them. So this is really, before painting the skull, the only OSL that I've done, and I just wanted to have another go at it. So when I painted these menhirs, there were two main things that I really sort of learnt from doing this. I did a little bit of research before going into it, looked at lots of images of other people that have done OSL, and the two main things that stood out that I focused on with these guys was, first of all, creating a smooth transition from the most intense light immediately around the light source that was then gradually feathering out to just a very, very soft glow at the limit of the edges and surfaces that are being, having any amount of light cast on them. So with the flames in the menhirs, I worked up to like almost a white light immediately around those candles, but then gradually feathered that out to just a super, super faint, really, really thin orange bit of glow right on those edges that were only just catching the very, very edge of the light. And by building up from that super, super faint glow right through to that really, really intense white light around it, it really helped to reinforce the fact that all of those edges were being hit by that light. Because if it was all just one consistent intensity of orange or yellow or white or whatever, then that effect would be lost, because we all know that light dissipates the further it gets away from the light source. The other thing that was really, really important to focus on was the directionality of the light, and making sure that every single edge every single surface, that I painted that glow on that was coming from the candles was hitting the correct edge of each of those rocks individually. So if there was a rock directly above the candle, that only the bottom of each of the edges that were getting any light had some light painted onto it, because that's the edge that would actually be catching the light. And that also helps to reinforce that each of those surfaces are being hit by that light source, because the direction that the glow is being painted from makes sense for that rock in particular. So those are the two things that, again, that I really tried to bring in to the skull here, with the glow coming from the eyes. So the first thing that I did was I really tried to build up a super, super bright glow in the middle of the eye. And now here I'm just starting to paint the actual glow on the surrounding surfaces. So I started by laying down a dark green, and then just gradually mixed in more and more yellow until I got to the very, very middle of the eye socket, where I ended up doing just a straight blob of white paint. No yellow mixed in, just white. And what that did is it created a really, really intense bright glow right in the middle, that then gradually feathered out to the edge of the eye socket, where it then made its way out to green. And now I'm starting to paint the green glow coming from the eyes onto the surrounding surfaces. And now I'm just speeding it up so that you can sort of see the majority of the process without it taking too long. And so what I did is I started with the brilliant green, which is the green that was around the edge of the eye socket, but I heavily thinned it down so that some of the purple was still coming through. And by feathering that out and around the edge of the eye sockets, down sort of the cheekbones and that's what created the initial soft glow that's at the edge of, the surfaces that are getting any amount of light. And then I gradually thickened that, and then worked my way to Viper Green, then mixed in a little bit of yellow. Now I'm here with a straight yellow, and as I'm mixing more and more yellow in and getting towards the straight yellow, which is what I'm doing at the moment, I'm getting closer and closer and closer to the immediate edge of the eye socket, so that I'm creating some transition from the edge of the eye socket where the glow from the eyes is quite intense, then out to the softest part of the glow. And that's just with the brilliant green quite mixed down with water. What I found difficult here was that because I really only had one surface to paint the glow-on, it was hard to get that transition. When I was doing the menhirs, I had lots and lots of edges for the light to catch and lots of distance to gradually transition that light source out. Here I didn't have that, so I don't think the effect works quite as well. I am still happy with how it looks, but I don't think it worked quite as well because I didn't have that distance to gradually transition it out to nothing where the light would stop catching it. But anyway, I was happy with the effect. In the middle of the table, it looks good, but when you look at it up close, it does lose the effect a little bit. But like I've always say, I paint these to be in the middle of the table, and in the middle of the table, the effect works. Alright, so just as I start to highlight the teeth here, just to bring out the definition a little bit and make them stand out a little bit more, the skull's done. It was very, very simple. Like I said, there were those two main things that I was focusing on, just building the forms with the airbrush, and that worked really, really well, just by gradually lightening it and just elevating a little bit more and a little bit more every time I lightened it off. That helped to keep those deep shadows underneath, but make the top of all of those edges quite bright. And the OSL, like I said, it didn't work as well as I wanted it to, because really I only had the tops of those cheekbones to, paint the glow on. It wasn't enough distance to really make it work effectively, but in the middle of the table, the effect works. So thanks very, very much for checking out this video. I hope something in here has been useful for you, either, by building the forms or doing some OSL or something like that. I think when you have a very, very simple mini like this, it is good to focus on something in particular so that you can really spend some time on that and not really worry about anything else too much. And that's what I was happy to do with this. So please stop by the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts that I have for this channel. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos as they keep coming out. And this is Matt from the Plastic Canvas signing out. Happy painting, everyone. Cheers.